Hey guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We're back with our weekly Q&A thing. This is season 13, episode 17. We are, as usual, going to start off with an indeterminate amount of time talking about whatever we want.
Well, or maybe
Okay,
we'll start, not what
a little bit of time on the team.
Let's make it injustice first to start off,
Yeah.
so we can at least nominally make it about justice. The team is Arkham Origins Bane. It is who we expect to be the challenge character coming Thursday, and we're going to talk about him more then if he's there. And we've used him a few times. He's not the worst. There's some interesting things that I always pick up on the more I play with him. Oh, I should point out, this is the season for that, right? That's sort of the theme for the season, that we've been playing with the characters that are coming up in the challenge, so we get to spend a bit more time with them. And it's going to be an interesting thing if something changes over the next few weeks, because we're running close to the sort of the drop dead date, where if they don't come out with new characters, they'll be, or it's the missing challenge characters at least, they'll be recycling the ones that have been around for a while. So we're going to find out probably by...
And we might start a new season.
May, yeah.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing that I think I might not have noticed before is that, all right, so I've got him with Tantu Totem, I've got him with Master's Death Cart, and I've got him with Claw of Horus. And I wonder if there's something going on, because if he tags in and he does a special one that whiffs, and that's not unusual, it's funny because his special one is not ranged, although it looks like it could be, and his tap attack is ranged, even though it looks like it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But so if his special one whiffs, I don't get the power back.
Interesting, even though he does no damage.
It looks like he's doing no damage. I really should be paying attention, but this is from, just playing with him over and over again. I know now to expect that if I tag him in, do a special one, hoping to shatter gears, and whether I shatter gears or don't shatter gears, I don't get that bar of power back.
Interesting.
And I think the gear shattering never used to be the issue, because I think I can think of a number of other characters where if you shatter
the power back, even though you're shattering gears.
Yeah. As long as you miss. But I'm not really sure what's going on. I mean, it still works if it's Astro Harness, but it's just interesting to me. The other thing that's interesting is how his Special 2 is stacked. So it looks like to me that there's 5 hits, and that I like the way it's set up because it's sort of broken down. All right, so whatever the first hit is, the second hit is about half that. The third, fourth, and fifth hit are about twice what the first hit is. And that doesn't really give us a proper breakdown. Like, it's not any kind of round numbers that you can add up.
Yeah.
But what I like about it is between the fourth and the fifth hit, there's enough spacing that you get the full benefit of the fifth hit if the fourth hit knocks out the opponent. And those are the best kind of special twos, I think, because what it does is it gives you that extra protection first, because it's not one of the characters that can only knock out on the last hit of the special. And it does, so it protects you from any tagging effects from the opponent's new teammate. It has enough front-loaded damage in the first 3 or 4 hits that the tail end is still significant. And there's enough of a gap between the 4th and 5th that the 5th hit will connect on the tagging in opponent. Those are always been my favorite. It's just a shame, I think, that he's just not... There's something about his Special 2 that doesn't do enough damage. However, what's good about his passive is that... So you'll notice that it's Arkham Knight Batgirl who's a teammate. And Arkham Knight Batgirl, one thing that we've always struggled with is, do you try to make sure she's got a bar of power when she tags in? Or our solution has been just to stack Cloak of Destiny and Necron Scythes to get twice as much stun boosted damage.
Yeah.
And use a third gear to give her 100%... basic combo crit chance, right? With the 50% to add it with her augmented. In this case, we're not doing that because Arkham Origins Bane's passive is to give Arkham teammates a bar of power once he gets below half health. So if she's tagging in to save him, she's guaranteed to have a bar of health, which works out really well. You can see it.
Power.
Sorry, bar of power. Yeah. What did I just say?
Bar of health.
Oh,
That's okay.
I'm not really paying attention. All right, so clearly I need an editor. But I've got you here, so that's fine.
Verbal editor.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's not a bad team. I like him better than I did when he first came in, and I don't mind him. I think with the amount of time that I play, and I still play a decent amount. I think I just struggled if I didn't have a specific goal in mind, like demonstrating Arkham Origins Bane, I probably wouldn't use him that much because there's just other options that are more fun to play.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's got decent special too.
I forget where it's from, but I think there's a joke somewhere where somebody tries to live censor a performance like of a song or something that has profanity in it.
Okay.
And it's a video, right? Or like it's a filmed piece of content. And so they do it kind of half right? So they're swearing. It really destroys the experience of the song because there's a lot of profanity in it. And then right towards the end, there's just like clear, like a bunch of profanity that just gets totally missed. So it just ends up making the song sound awful. And somebody is like sitting there looking, stressed and freaked out and doing it really badly. And so you just get like not really a song performance, not really censored. And then the button on the end is them. So when you're talking about a live editor, that's what I'm picturing.
Right.
Yeah.
So now we get to the current events. Did you want to talk current events first, or do you?
I don't.
You want to go?
So the current event that I don't know enough about to speak on, but is just clear, like to speak on in a way where I'm adding to the conversation in any meaningful way.
Yeah.
Or I feel like I have my own opinion that stands differently from other people. Is the man who was deported to that prison, right?
In El Salvador. Yeah.
In El Salvador, yeah. Just everything happening with that, with the unanimous Supreme Court vote to bring him back. And then the
Trump meeting with the president of El Salvador,
and everyone
making
just
noises and
pretending,
pretending, nothing to do.
Yeah. Just that's terrible stuff. But I don't have anything to add on to that, right? Other than like I think that anybody reasonable would see, regardless of how you feel about any individual or their politics, right?
Yeah.
That a unanimous Supreme Court vote being overturned, all this stuff is not stuff that should be happening in the current system, right? So for anybody to support this in any capacity, they would need to be saying that they don't want most of the checks and balances that exist in the current system, right? They would have to be like, this is a good thing, actually. You would have to essentially say, what I want is a president who can do whatever they want with absolutely no limits on their control, no checks and balances.
Well, and if you want that, you're not American. So, I mean, the American was founded on the 3 co-equal branches of government.
Yeah.
And what you're seeing in real time is the complete collapse. And when I say complete, I mean that the 2 other branches are shown to be either ineffectual or subjugating themselves. And let me point out this. Congress is responsible for the money. And by having that vote of basically allowing Trump to continue doing his tariff business, they've completely ditched any responsibility they have. They basically say, yeah, go ahead. I know it's our job, but we're actually officially letting you take over our job. So there goes one co-equal branch of government. Now, the second co-equal branch of government has said, this is something that you should not do. And they're basically pretending, the executive branch is basically pretending, oh, yeah, okay, sure. And then, oh, we can't do that. It's like when people testify in court say, I don't remember.
Yeah.
That's their way of sort of saving face, not saving face, sort of pretending that they're actually doing it when it's so obvious that they're just passive,
it's plausible
aggressively
deniability.
And it's not even that. Like, the problem is it's not even plausible deniability. Like, when you see somebody say, well, they remember a bunch of details, but then when it comes to actual stuff that's incriminating, they say, I don't remember. I don't remember.
Recall.
And then when Trump, who's made himself to be so strong and powerful, and the El Salvadorian president, who really does have control over the we talked about, there's nothing we can do. It's just, it is, if you are American and you're okay with that, I have no idea how you can reconcile that with thinking that you are somehow sticking to American values that aren't just white supremacist values.
Mm-hmm. And I think the larger point is just that you don't want total unchecked power in decision making in a single person, even if they're doing all the stuff that you want, right? Just on principle. Like, I would not want any politician to have that degree of power and control just to do whatever,
yeah.
because you would have to trust them 100%, right? There it has to be. It's a, you know, in the same way that like crypto is like a zero trust currency, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That would have to be a 100% trust. You'd have to let them do whatever they wanted exactly as they wanted and acknowledge that's good. And I don't trust any one person with that degree of control over a whole country.
Yeah, no, but and it's wild to me because this is, I mean, historically, this is what we've been taught, right? That this is why the United States was founded, literally, because they were unhappy under the yoke of the British monarchy.
Mm-hmm.
They did not want to be ruled like that. And they decided, hey, let's break away and let's create the system of government that has its own checks and balances by the fact that there are literally these three co-equal branches of government.
Yeah.
So wild.
And you had something else that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so we're in the middle of our own election. And actually, getting back to the original point, one thing I learned when we're talking about all these people being sent to El Salvador, the idea, it's not deportation, it's rendition. So rendition I'm used to in the term where it's used sort of commonly, right?
Yeah, like a rendition of a song.
Right. And rendition is actually a term that's used for sending somebody to another country that has looser laws around torture so that they can actually do stuff to them. I mean, usually the intent is to get information or to whatever.
Yeah.
But what happened to that guy is basically a rendition.
That's horrible.
Yes, it's wild to me that there's a term for it, and I learned it just now because I was just reading something from a friend who had posted saying, yeah, let's not talk about deportation because this is not a deportation, this is a rendition. And I had to look up to see what it was, and I thought, yeah, that's exactly right.
But that is horrible. Yeah, where you're sending them somewhere where worse treatment is
possible,
allowed.
Yeah. So we have our own federal election right now. Our local candidate came by during the day and talked to my wife. I missed it, and I wish so much that I'd been here because the information that he left behind was not in keeping with his sort of, hey, let's get along and talk kind of attitude. You know, we should be able to have just a discourse about our ideas and stuff, because he left behind a flyer. On one side had, you know, the happy face with him posing with Pierre Poilievre. And the other side was, it looks like a generic boilerplate kind of stuff that they can slap onto any conservative candidate's information, because none of it's specific to our district.
Yeah.
And I'm going to read a few of them, not because I want to give them more airtime, but I want to give you a sense of just how ridiculous some of it is. So on the one side, they have these things about what conservatives will do. And on the other side, they have stuff about, after 10 years of Carney, Trudeau, Liberals, crime is on the rise. I mean, the first problem really is it's obviously misleading because Carney was never elected. This is one of the points that they try to make, is that he's not a politician.
And he's also spent so little time as the prime minister that you cannot expect anything he's done. The statistics haven't come out since he's been in office for any of this stuff.
Right. So the common sense stuff, they've got three catchy slogans, right? Repeal liberal soft on crime laws. Okay, that's generic enough. I don't know that, you know, I guess if you point to specific laws, that's not an unreasonable kind of platform. It says bring jail, not bail for repeat violent offenders. I mean, that's sort of what happens, right? Like, bail is meant to be for people who are awaiting trial. You don't know if they're guilty. And a judge decides, hey, is this the kind of person that we expect will still show up? Is this the kind of person we expect is going to be not present a danger to people?
Yeah.
So when you make rules that take discretion out of judges' hands, it's not unlike when American legislators make rules for or against what doctors can or can't do. Mm-hmm. What you're doing is you're deciding, hey, politicians are going to do a better job than judges. Now, the argument is, maybe you can make the argument that maybe some of the judges aren't great, but if you're going to do that, what you need to do is figure out a way to, you know, better sort of supervise judges rather than just take what they are actually experts in out of their hands. Mm-hmm. And it says crack down on border smuggling and stop the flow of legal guns to criminals and gangs in Canada. I mean, what you're looking at here is sort of the flip side to the way Trumpism has put keeping the borders secure. And I think it's not an awful platform, again, because you can make the case that, yeah, we want fewer guns. We want fewer illegal guns. I think part of it will be just to make it more, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't even know what I'm trying to say. This is probably not unreasonable. Like the side that the conservatives put on is not the worst thing. It's when you get to the side where they have a picture of Carney sitting in a chair and a picture of Trudeau that they've cut and pasted into together, and they've made it all red to make it look like they're, like, I don't know, hell or something.
Yeah.
So crime is on the rise. And there's a bunch of statistics that they put there that I'm not even sure that are legitimate. The one that jumps out at me is hate crimes have risen by 250%.
Mm-hmm.
And if I didn't hate the platform already, this would have pushed me over the edge. And this has probably pushed me to the point where instead of just sitting by quietly and voting the way I'm going to vote, I'm going to be more vocal with people I speak to about how ridiculous and patronizing, and when people lie to your face about things and try to manipulate you, when they do that to me, I feel like they're treating me like I'm an idiot. And I find that super insulting, that somehow they can say stuff like this and it's supposed to fool me. And all right, so here's my take on it, and why it may be, if it's not obvious on the face of it, why it's so bad. Okay, so here's the thing. I know hate crimes have risen a lot. The great majority of them were during the pandemic against people who looked Asian, not even Chinese. And the basis of that was that it was basically fueled by racist rage against anybody who looked like they might be Chinese, because people thought, yeah, it was China's fault.
Yeah, and I will say also that, hate crimes, if we look at the stats in America, have, for example, risen with Donald Trump, right?
Sure.
So, and I think it's not unreasonable to say that being their neighbors, that their politics and their political climate has to some amount influenced ours, right? In terms of, whatever rise there is in hate crimes in the States, that there's some commensurate rise here to a different extent, but just as the political climate shifts and as it becomes more clear, globally, and especially in North America, where people's political alignments lay.
So to the degree that Polyev has a platform that's tough on crime, it's completely focused on punishment as a potential deterrent, right? Because if you're just going to punish people, but you don't somehow believe or plan for that to be a deterrent to cut down on crime, then it's useless. People are just going to commit crimes, and you're just going to spend more money punishing them.
And yeah, so I actually just looked up Stats Canada, and I'm not on there anymore, but I looked at the differing homicide rates.
Yeah.
And the homicide per 100,000 people, and we're talking about numbers between, it looked like about 1.5 and like 2.2, or something like that. And you'll notice that it's relatively low, and there's a big jump in the 10-year comparison in 2020.
Oh, right.
The pandemic,
okay.
right?
Yeah, pandemic,
so just when we're talking about homicide and violent crime and all these other stuff, and I am not saying that there is not a real difference in outcomes based off of policy, or not that there can be, right?
Sure.
Be a difference in outcome for a lot of these things based off of policy. But what I will say is that it is not nearly as simple as just policy. I think a lot of this stuff is global trends, and you'll find a lot of the factors are stuff that's a lot harder to deal with, right? Because you were talking about deterrence, right? And you're right, just punishing harder. The research shows, to the best of my knowledge, that stricter punishments do less to deter crime than a lot of people would have you believe.
Right, because your starting point is not no deterrent. You've already got deterrence, but there's probably a threshold at which point people who are going to commit crimes don't really consider that. Like, there's some people who consider it and then say no. And then there's some people who don't even care, and you make the punishment harder, they're still going to do it because they think they're going to get away with it. They're not going to get caught, and it's not a consideration when they do it.
In general, improving people's material situation to the point where they feel like they have something to lose, right, is a much better deterrent. And so in general, what you want, actually, is more social services, right? More of a social safety net, right?
Well, okay, so even before we get into that, because I feel like that kind of thing is a little bit more complicated and you'd have to actually convince people.
That's true. That's true.
And I
It's
don't
a
want to
harder
get to
pitch.
that. To me, the point I'm trying to make with this is that the people who were angry at anybody they thought might be Chinese who was in their country who was in front of them as a cause for, maybe it started in China, but I mean, the most proximate cause of the pandemic, where the vectors mainly came from, was actually Italy, first of all. And listen, don't accept that. But the same people who were so angry were the same people who were mad about everything related to pandemic. Any restrictions, any kind of requirements, any kind of regulations. Oh, look, there's a parallel with the gun lobby, right? So it's not that you're not allowed to do stuff. It's that you are required to do other things first. So if you're in public, wear a mask. If you're going to be, in the case of truckers who were transporting stuff, the United States had regulations and they put in rules to require people who were crossing the border to do stuff. These were American requirements. So if you look back, there was a bunch of truckers who occupied Ottawa, the capital of Canada, and these would have been truckers who weren't actually working because they did not meet the requirements that the states put in place, so they couldn't cross the border. And they were mad. So they came to Ottawa to express their displeasure. So you see the connection too? They're angry. So these are people who were already angry. They were predominantly white. And Pierre Poilievre was happy to have photo ops with the people who were involved in this, the people who were considered leaders, and not just, in passing, where they happen to be, like those gotcha kind of photos where, famous politicians often will meet people will want to come up and shake their hand and take pictures, not because they're actually connected, but, if they're at some sort of public event, right?
Yeah.
These were pictures during the occupation in Ottawa in front of trucks. The Poilievre was happy to be, smiling and, and so this is the same guy who's putting on the flyers, hate crimes are up 250%. And if you can make that connection, which I can, he's also the one that's encouraging the anger and the rage that's causing these hate crimes. There actually is a connection there, and it's not the one they want us to believe.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly somebody who's never been affected by that, who's not thinking about hate crimes and, being in a group that is potentially going to be violently attacked for no reason other than belonging to a marginalized group, probably isn't going to be thinking about it too carefully. But to me, that connection jumped out huge. And when our candidate is a brown guy, and he can't even understand that the stuff that he's peddling is dangerous, then I really cannot sit quietly and listen to it without maybe doing a little bit more than just voting. And I guess I still haven't figured out why, because this was just the other day, but I've got to figure out how I'm going to be more active this election to really make sure that these are not the kind of people that end up leading Canada.
Yeah.
Because they're awful.
I think the problem is that, like, the world is a very complicated place, right? And when you see sort of here's the crime statistics, we are going to be tough on crime, right? We're going to jail all the criminals, and then there's not going to be any crime. The thing that, is kind of implied there is that somehow you are going to catch or deter everybody else, right?
Right.
And, like, in all these crime statistics, all this stuff is already illegal, right?
Yeah.
It's not like when Justin Trudeau came in that there was some massive overhaul to the criminal justice system, right? These are sort of slow moving beasts, right? Government and the wheels of government, right? And so again, I'm not even trying to say that you can't or shouldn't make changes to try to reduce crime, right? But what we are being sold is exceptionally simple solutions to exceptionally complex problems.
Simplistic.
Yeah.
Simplistic to me has the connotation, at least, that it's sort of dumb.
But and more importantly, it is things that are meant to make you feel better about it, as opposed to things that are actually meant to improve the situation.
Very much. All right.
right?
So yeah, security theater, right?
Yeah.
Like, exactly like all the stuff that we put ourselves through for taking off our shoes, and all the, like, for a guy who had a shoe bomb that was unsuccessful.
So I think that in general, the things that we talk about to reduce crime are not effective at reducing crime based off of the things that we understand, and then and the research, the evidence on different
Right. But there's different
approaches.
elements, right? Like, there's preventing, but I'm not saying don't punish anybody. I think that's still valid, right?
Yeah.
But I think at some point, the more you punish people, you're dehumanizing yourself and also wasting a bunch of money to do it.
Yeah. And well, the other thing that you run into is that the less, when you're just tough on crime in general, when you're highly punishing to various forms of crime, the thing that you end up doing, to at least to some extent, right? And I don't have good sort of research numbers. There's nothing solid that I'm willing to stand on here in terms of the facts. But when you're punishing light crimes heavily, the incentive versus the cost of doing more serious crimes goes down, right?
Yeah.
Because if the amount of punishment you'd receive is equivalent for a light crime versus a much like heavier crime, like let's talk about like non-violent versus like violent crime, for example, right?
Right.
Then all of a sudden, if there's anything where you can get you squeeze any more value out of your actions by doing something more severe, there's not nearly as much of a difference in cost to you anymore, right? So. And again, no specific research for that. So I'm not, that's not the hill that I'm willing to die on here. But just say everything is more complicated than they would like to make it seem. And if it's that's how it works, but not just how it works, I'd be okay with that. The thing is that what I'm seeing here is evidence that what they want to do is they want to make you feel better as opposed to actually improve your situation at all.
Right.
And feeling better has some value, right? But I would rather not be sort of lied to, talked down to, misled, right? I'd rather not be given simple, insufficient solutions to complicated, nuanced problems. And I feel like that's not how we should be talked to or treated as voters.
And the last thing I want to say on this too is, I feel like we are very lucky that we even have a candidate as good as Carney, because I'll tell you now, I would have been willing to vote for somebody who is less capable and less palatable just to not vote for this jingoistic, hate-mongering lifetime politician.
Yeah.
I think we're just lucky that we have that choice, because anybody else, I would have had to hold my nose and vote for them, because I think that was a less offensive option. I feel very grateful. Yeah,
I mean, like, I would have ended up voting for Trudeau, even though I don't think I think most people are pretty unhappy with him at this point. But yeah. Okay, so let's do maybe one injustice thing.
I think we can do 2 quick ones.
Well, we'll see. So the first one comes from Ivan Vera N5I. And they say, the game is already outdated and does not receive more updates today because sooner or later, Injustice Gods Among Us Mobile will be removed from the Play Store. This game is more than 11 years old since it was released for iOS, and a year later in 2014, it was ported to Android. The same thing could happen to it as WWE Immortals, which was also removed 7 years ago.
I mean, it's an interesting point. At one point, we were doing WWE Immortals videos too, and we were doing videos to the point up until they actually almost to the point they shut down.
Yeah.
I think Immortals, and I know Immortals came out after. It did not have the same kind of player base.
Yeah.
And it wasn't as good a game. The graphics were not as smooth. It was very similar. In a lot of ways, if it scratches your itch and you were a fan of wrestling, I think it would have as much appeal as Injustice would have. But it's clearly very different.
Also, probably more complicated logistically with the licensing, just because it was real people. I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I'm saying that, but I don't actually know.
So it's not, I mean, listen, all that could happen. It's definitely a different beast, if only because I believe that Warner Brothers and DC probably are willing to devote more of an absolute amount of money to keep some of their properties just, active as advertising
Yeah.
than, say, the WWE would. But, it's already at the point where Immortals sort of was killed off. Injustice had already been around longer. It started earlier. It's taking longer. I think the incremental cost, clearly they were cutting costs when they stopped giving, content updates.
Yeah.
But
it probably won't be around forever.
No, for sure it won't. But the fact that they've kept it around for as long as they have without new content, but still, letting us play online, I feel like it's got to count for something. And the threshold for shutting it down, I remember what was that game I was playing?
Renegade Midnight Star?
Renegade Midnight Star. I love that game, but when they shut down the servers, you couldn't play it at all because it required you to be online to play it. I think there's still, not as much, but there's still some value as a collecting kind of game where even if they did shut down the servers, which is probably the biggest cost, that it'd still be fun a little bit to play the story mode.
Yeah, it's shutting down the servers. And then the other cost that's ongoing is when the Play Store or Android updates enough that it requires a compatibility update for it to keep running.
Yeah.
And I think that those are usually relatively minor because the Android store does not want to just break all of the apps on it. But it would require somebody to do something, which might not happen eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Injustice has already lasted maybe, 3 times as long as Immortals has already?
Yeah.
So I don't know that there's a great comparison there to let us predict what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there we go. I think that probably will do it for this week. So to finish up, we have some folks that we would like to thank. Do you want to do the honors?
Yeah. So these are our patrons on Patreons. Patreons? I almost said Patreons. These are our patrons on Patreon, and that's Michael Devries, Irvin, Ruiz, Hoshi127, Nora Klimek, and Miguel, who are supporting us on the credited level.
So there we go. Thank you so much for your support. And thanks so much to all of you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Komoda.